Hi, Paul. Thanks for helping my project. Could you start out by saying a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Name's Paul Gallagher. I'm from Liverpool, which is in the northern part of England. I work for a company called Anaplan, as you know, as a customer success business partner. I'm a bit of a techie guy, bit of a geek. Always have been. Love new technologies, love new ideas. When it comes to films, I can't be bothered with real life and stuff. I always have to watch the film that gives me the most. Show me something I can't see day to day. And I guess that's always just been a part of who I am, as I just like that wonder aspect, which is, I guess, one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you today.
That's awesome. Are there some particular films that really stick out in your mind as really showing that vision of what the future would be like?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's funny, isn't it? Because it's the it's almost like a meme now, right? Where people say, in the year 2022, we'll be driving flying cars, and then you look outside the window and you're like, oh, we're complaining about all sorts that have got nothing to do with technology. But I guess I kind of like seeing the far fetched in terms of your Star Treks and things like that. But then equally, and not to just use the main sort of films you watch, but like things like Blade Runner, where you see those almost like real aspects of people just doing day-to-day jobs, but enhanced. Marketing, which is almost where everything's going, right? Everything's just more marketing. It's in your face, and it's a bit more big 3D images coming out at your head. But I even laugh at that now. I mean, you go back 20 years and probably people were talking about 3D is everywhere. Actually, no one cares about 3D images or even films for that matter. That was a brief encounter, right?
Yeah, it is. Um, but I wanted to ask you about Star Trek.
Yeah.
I feel like Star Trek had like a massive following across the world and provided sort of that common sort of like future technological vision of where life could go. Like the
Yeah.
communicator and the tricorder and the space flight and all these things. And I was wondering if you felt that way as well.
Yeah, so I think what I kind of like, then obviously I guess if I was around when it first come out, then I probably wouldn't have the same thoughts. But it was always interesting to me that you look at things like oh my God, the name's falling out my head, the replicator, right? And you look
Mhm.
at the replicator and you think, well, 3D, how far away is 3D printing from things like that? You mentioned the
A
terminology's falling out.
tricorder and
Yeah, the tricorder,
communicator.
the communicator, and you think, well, mobile phones, especially the original ones where they pull it out and that one, yeah, it's not too different. You pick up your mobile phone now and you can scan documents and it'll tell you what it says on the document. Is that all too different from a tricorder? And then I guess it was because of the way it was sort of grounded in naval exploration. You
Mm.
could almost straight away see the pattern of actually this could be a destination for us, and to get to that point, I always used to think about, well, how are you overcoming the gravity? And I always wanted to know, well, you don't talk about that part, so can you give me a bit of background? And then you watch things. Is it Elysium? And you see this a lot more in program or sci-fi, in science fiction films, etc. Now, whether you have the ring and you all live on the inside of the ring, and it's the rotation, and I kind of go, is that based in science or is it an idea? Would that momentum create gravity? I don't know.
It would definitely create a centrifugal force, which would have a similar effect on the human body as gravity.
There you go. So already you've highlighted to me something that I've been curious about, because I just didn't know whether it'd have the same impact with it being in space. Because obviously you imagine, on Earth, you imagine a roundabout, right? And the faster it goes, the more you get pulled to the edge. So I imagine it could be similar, but then if the counter effect was you were so far removed from the Earth's gravitational pull, does it have the same impact? But yeah.
Yeah, the centrifugal force should work regardless of whether or not you're near a large enough body feel gravity or not. So
Amazing. Because
yeah.
I think what did I watch the other day? I mean, I've watched it a few times now, but The Martian,
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
you see that almost on their ship on the way back, you know, how the rotation, etc. And I was watching that thinking, okay, I know that wasn't the main part of the story, but again, it sort of tweaked that part of me that was always curious on it.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I mean, we had Scott Kelly, who stayed nearly a year in space, and he came back and he had all sorts of readjustment health issues, loss of bone density and muscle mass, and he had massive swelling in his legs because when you're in space, you don't have the gravity pulling you down, and so the things that fight against gravity really push everything up, and then they kind of atrophy over time, and then you come back down and you need it and you don't have it. So
yeah. And so how do you reckon that'll impact the ambitions of space travel?
Well, I mean, I think it's to what you were alluding to a little bit. We need to figure out how to recreate the forces that we experience in our native environment, so that we can remain healthy wherever we go.
Yeah. Because I guess the ambition is, if you're going out into space, it's to arrive somewhere, right? You're not just going to go out blindly and try to create civilization on the move. You're gonna head to a destination. So when you arrive, you don't want to have those same medical discomforts of being weaker. What if you land and it's even stronger density of gravity than Earth, right? And you're just almost paralyzed on the surface.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we have experience with people being in 1G, which is like the gravity here on Earth. And we have experience with people being in 0G, which is what's happening whenever you're in free fall, falling around the Earth in orbit. And we know that 1G is good and 0G is bad, but we don't know about those in between ranges. Is 1/6G on the moon good enough to keep you healthy? Or 1/3 G on Mars, is that good enough to keep you healthy?
Yeah, I mean, and I guess that's it. I guess that comes to another question that I had in my mind, and you're probably well placed to answer this. But I guess that always makes me think, well, why are we going back to the moon? Because is there a benefit of people going as opposed to a Curiosity rover going?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a very good point, especially if the people that are going are treated like robots and they have to follow a very prescribed script.
Yeah.
And it'd be better to send a machine anyway, because you don't get the interactive human curiosity element of having a person on site.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it may actually come down to your long-term range of view of humanity. Like a very simple question. Do you think humanity will always be Earth-centric, or do you think at some point, humanity will be in many places and Earth is just one of them?
Well, I hope that is where we're headed. Do I think we are organized enough as a species to do it? Probably not, because we're probably a little bit over territorial. We probably still get stuck in the mud with things like skin color, sexuality, your nationality is the most obvious one. And then you kind of say, well, how are we going to thrive on multiple planes when we can't even get it together in one? Especially when there's those famous sort of quotes, which I'm not going to be able to say word for word, but essentially, when people look back at the Earth and they all come away with the same appreciation of saying, well, actually, we're quite fragile and we're on this small place together in the infinite darkness of space. Stop quarreling, stop arguing. There's bigger things, and I feel like until we get past that side of things, then it is just a hope that we expand. And I really do hope that we do, that's what we achieve. But it's so easy to see where we're going to fall down.
But I'm wondering if what you just mentioned there about a human standing on the moon, looking back at Earth and realizing how small, fragile, finite Earth is, um, it's kind of like whenever you take one of those trips and you climb up a tall mountain or you see a big valley and you're like, whoa, this is like so big. And then you take a picture of it and you're like showing it to your family and friends after you get back. And you're like, oh, okay, whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
no, no, it was huge. It was big. Uh, I just wonder if that may be reason enough to send people.
Yeah, yeah, increase the exposure, increase. But you often find that with humanity, especially, and you can see it day to day, the people that rise to power aren't the curious type. They're not going to go to the moon to have this awakening. They're very much happy that they're in control, and they want to keep that control. They don't want to share that control. They want to, and I just feel like people who are motivated by power, they're not necessarily they're obviously ambitious in one sense, but they're not interested in humanity. They're interested in number one. And I guess what we need leadership that will push for the greater good, whether that be space travel or whether it be, again, I used Elysium earlier, those pods that cured every ailment, what I guess if we put as much money into healthcare, medicine, etc., would we even need to go into space? And I know over time, at some point, the sun will dictate that more than humanity ever will. But how many years is that away? Billions upon.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a good question. I mean, do we go into space to benefit humanity here on Earth to solve some problem we have, or do we go in space because of the wonder and exploration and curiosity and the needing for actually exploring it just to explore it, just like
Yeah,
you might do with a wilderness area or an ocean. You're like, there's no benefit in me going over this ocean, but I don't know what's there. I want to know. I
yeah.
want to see
Why did you climb the mountain? Because it was there.
because it was
Yeah,
there.
yeah. Well, I guess the only thing that would make me believe that people wouldn't do it for the sake of it is because the sheer time constraints to travel that far.
Hmm.
So even if you're traveling at the speed of light, how many places can we actually reach within a lifetime? And if you're not individually benefiting from it, but generations down the line are going to, how many people will sacrifice 2 or 3 generations just to let someone else see that planet? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a difficult situation. Yeah, I know. But you were talking about people in power, and wealthy people is a type of power.
Correct.
And so you have Elon Musk, who I think is currently the richest person in the world. Not really sure.
Yeah.
And his ambition is to build a 1 million-person city on Mars by 2050. That's fairly
It's ambitious.
self-sustaining. And he's like, he thinks that humanity has kind of two choices in this future. I mean, there's so many ways to carve out the future, but one is uh, humanity is a single planet species, or humanity is a multi-planet species. And he thinks the latter one is what we need to have for long-term survival and
Yeah.
also long-term enrichment and growth. How do you think about that? I mean, do you think that's a fair way to kind of break down our potential futures between just those two choices, single planet versus multi-planet?
Yeah. Well, I guess those are the options in front of us, right? I guess my thoughts around it would be, again, how long before we have a territories being carved up on Mars? Because people don't want to be governed by one person; they want to be governed by this person over here, and then all of a sudden you can almost imagine us, despite being an advanced civilization that can travel planets, you can almost imagine with a small number of people on Mars, there would become factions, almost like uh, like almost like cavemen. They'd be saying, well, this is our part, that's your part. You can be ran like this, and then you can almost imagine like rivalry in terms of war and things like that. And maybe I'm being the pessimist here, but I guess I'm trying to think of all the stuff that could go wrong rather than all the things that could go right, because I so desperately want it to go right that I'm almost thinking, right, if I kind of think of all the problems, maybe other people have thought of them and they're already on to solving them, because
Well,
I worry about human nature. There's a lot of people that are, full of wonder, right? But then there are a lot of people that are opportunistic, self-centered, and it's who wins.
but here on Earth, we have people being born all over the place with every range of kind of personalities and outlooks and motivations. And with inside of particular countries, pretty much those have kind of developed and are becoming more and more. You see the same kind of diffusion of stuff within inside of each country.
Yeah.
Now, initially, having to go to Mars provides a type of filter.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, you're right.
So you're going to have, people who want to sit on Earth all day and not go anyplace probably aren't going to Mars.
No, yeah. People who are comfortable with Netflix aren't going to Mars.
Aren't going to Mars. Well, they might be you might need to be comfortable with Netflix on the ride there.
Yeah.
The 6 months that you're waiting to arrive, you need to be able to be okay in really confined spaces. But
yeah. I think there'd be nothing more thrilling than arriving at another planet. I just can't imagine anything that would blow your minds more than just arriving at Mars.
I think what may also be mind-blowing is not seeing the Earth. Like between here and Mars, where you don't see anything but the sun and a whole bunch of lovely dots in the sky, and you're like,
yeah,
I am really by myself. Like there's nothing.
Yeah. Well, isn't there's only a set amount of people that have ever lost sight of the Earth, right? And those are the people that have gone around the far side of the moon.
That's true.
In transit.
That's true.
But
they had the moon really close to them. So, they may have been like, I feel it's like a nice little comfort pillow.
Yeah. But I think imagine losing sight of the Earth and not really comprehending what that is. It's like as far as humanity's ever existed, they've only been on that planet and you can't see it, even if it's only for an hour. You can't even see it. Oh, it's terrifying. I think yeah.
And you have like several filters, right? You have the filter of who gets on the ship, who survives launch, who survives the transit, and then who survives enough on Mars to actually influence the next generation. So that will produce kind of like a refined set of attributes that you just don't get here on Earth. Now, at some point, Mars will be no different than any place on Earth. But I think for maybe the first 100, 200 years, there will be a particular Martian outlook.
Yeah. And from that, do you ever see, what are your thoughts on, is it just colonization or is it terraforming?
I think we should go for terraforming.
It's got to be the most sustainable way to be there long term, right?
Who are we saving the planet for? It seems like a waste. It's like my family is really big about leaving the like the plastic covers on furniture to protect the furniture.
Yeah.
But I'm like, who are we protecting it for?
Do you know what? That is something that's dawned on me later on in life. I always used to save the nice bottle of whiskey, right? And you go, right, that's for good occasions. And then you think to yourself, well, I might not reach the good occasion. Have it today and actually enjoy the bottle for what it's worth. Not all the
Are,
bottle. If this is recording, not all the bottle, just a sample.
just a, or maybe just the realization that today is a good occasion. Every day
Yeah,
is a good occasion.
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so I do agree with you. If the goal should be as ambitious as possible, right? But do you think technology matches the ambition at the moment?
I hope technology never matches the ambition.
Yeah,
Otherwise, we just kind of peak and that's it. It's downhill from
yeah.
there.
Oh, and we've got to be miles away from peak, right? You
I
know,
mean,
you even look 30 years ago, you probably wouldn't envision half of the stuff that's happening today.
yeah. I mean, exactly. I mean, it's just it's really awesome. But talking about ambition and countries and stuff like that. So China was planning to send people to the moon in 2035.
Okay.
They recently came out and said, hey, they think they could do 2027. So there's like this little, and the American program with Artemis has slipped from 2024 to 2025 officially. And some people speculate that it's going to be closer to 2026, 2027, 2028 timeframe. So we're starting to see kind of with the downward trend in the Chinese timeframe and upward trend in the American
Yeah.
timeframe that there's a point of heightened possibility of uncertainty about who's going to be there first. Uh, and I was just wondering, does that matter at all? I mean, how do you feel about that?
Well, see, because I'm not overly territorial, and bear in mind, and I'm probably not territorial on this because England aren't in the race anyway. I do kind of think, does it matter anymore? I guess the first has already happened. And it all depends on what the goal is. And I guess I go back to the manned mission versus the sort of the rover type missions. What is the goal? If the goal is simply to put someone there, then good luck to both parties. If the ambition or the goal is to find out about the surface of the moon, or maybe even just get notes and information on how we get there at a fraction of the price and safer, etc., then you really got to start saying, well, it doesn't matter who goes first if we're just working out at the ability to go there. Because I was reading stuff saying it could be a variety of reasons, things like it's a place to get your space legs, they called it. And the moon might be a place where you just go, you sort of condition yourself for space, and then you're off to Mars or you're off to somewhere else. But then I also read somewhere that there's highly valuable resource on the moon. And the idea of someone mining the moon, for me, is terrifying. The moon is part reason why we all exist, why we've got the opportunity to talk to each other on Zoom. And if it wasn't for the impact that has on the oceans, right? But so imagine if we do something and we overmine the moon, then we all need to go to Mars, and then it's and then we've created a problem. So I guess I'd love to know what the goal is, what the official line is. Why do they want to go? And then I'll decide if it matters.
Actually, the head of the Chinese Space Agency, talks about how the moon's like the South China Sea, and trying to get there first will allow for them to kind of ensure that they have access. But then there's also a hint, at least, about potentially denying access to other people. So there's that,
matter.
and of course, this is me speaking from Houston, Texas, with the American perspective.
Yeah.
It's like we have to frame up everything as these epic worldwide conflicts that we gotta win.
But doesn't that take it back to what we initially spoke about with Mars, right? If people are going with the ambition of stopping other people going, then do we even deserve to go? If that's our only goal, is to stop someone else because they're from another country, we don't even deserve to be on there. And I just keep going back to that. Until we get rid of our own pettiness as a species, then it doesn't matter if we're on Mars or whether we actually work out that we can travel faster than light and we can get to every planet that's in the known galaxy, or the known universe. Sorry, because if we're always just going to be battling with each other, then the second we find intelligent life out there, we're probably going to want to battle with them as well. And you think, oh, come on, give it a rest.
I know, but I mean, the thing is, there's no place on Earth where you can, or even on the moon, or even in orbit, where you can get away from the influence of your culture, your nationality, your fellow human being. But Mars, it goes around the moon, around the sun every 2 years and 2 months. So, I mean, you will be you'll be physically isolated, communicationally isolated, and you'll only have the people there with you. I gotta think that your connection to those people is going to be the most important thing.
Yeah. What would be the one thing you took to Mars with you from Earth?
They asked astronaut candidate that,
yeah,
and they said, and her answer was Matt Damon and a lot of ketchup.
Yeah. That's a good answer. That's a good answer.
But I have no idea. There's so much you would need to bring with you that one thing wouldn't be enough.
It wouldn't, would it? It really wouldn't.
You need
you
millions of things
because it's useless now.
Yeah.
You take one book and you'll be bored of it within 10 years.
You'll have it memorized.
Yeah.
You'll be reading it backwards just for variety.
So yeah, it's an almost impossible ask, that, isn't it?
Absolutely. I do see it's right at the hour. I didn't know if you had a meeting after this. I didn't want to
yeah, so I do have to go shortly. So unfortunately, because I was really enjoying this, and I guess I'll probably end this on just saying, again, congratulations on your own move, and I hope we get to have a chat again about this, because this is just such a fascinating topic. I know you've got tons of these, so I won't pester you about that conversation, but you may get an email every now and then from me.
That'd be awesome. And maybe in person. Either you come to Houston and let me give you a tour, or I could visit England and
I would
meet up with you there.
Love that. I guess it'd probably be more interesting for me to go to Houston than you to come to Liverpool. It's quite small, but I'd be happy to give you the tour regardless.
We should do both. Why choose?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. No, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate that you giving me the time, as well as allowing me to just to field all these questions, and yeah, it's been brilliant.
It's been wonderful. Well, Paul, you have a good rest of your day, and yes, let's stay in touch for sure.
Yeah, brilliant. Take care, man. See you soon.
Bye-bye.